You are sitting there, doing nothing, and it feels almost unbearable. Maybe 30 seconds have passed, maybe a minute, and already your mind is clawing for something, anything to grab onto. You pick up your phone, you scroll, you put it down, you pick it up again. That restless, itching feeling in your chest right now has a name, and the real answer is far stranger than you might expect. Because that feeling didn't start with smartphones or television or even books. It started hundreds of thousands of years before any of those things existed. And the way your ancient ancestors dealt with it, the way they literally survived it, quietly shaped almost everything about who you are today. To understand why boredom feels so physically uncomfortable, you have to go back to a time when doing nothing could get you killed. Picture a human ancestor sitting near a tree line, nothing moving, no predators visible, no fruit to gather, no fire to tend. Just stillness. For a modern person, that sounds peaceful. For an early human, it was a red flag. Stillness meant wasted time. Wasted time meant less food, less shelter, less safety. The brain that learned to feel uncomfortable during inactivity was the brain that survived, which raises an uncomfortable question. What if boredom isn't a flaw? What if it's the most important alarm system your brain ever developed? Neuroscientist John Eastwood, who has spent years studying the science of boredom at York University, describes it as a craving for mental engagement that isn't being met. Not laziness, not weakness, a craving. Your brain is designed to seek stimulation the same way your stomach is designed to seek food. When that stimulation doesn't come, the discomfort you feel is your nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do. Push you toward action, push you toward something useful. But that's not the whole story, because ancient humans didn't just experience boredom as a silent internal alarm. They responded to it in ways that reveal an almost shocking level of creativity and social intelligence. And the first place to look isn't a cave painting or a fire pit. It's much smaller than that. The oldest known game board was discovered in southeastern Turkey at a site called Bashur Hoyuk, and it dates back roughly 5,000 years. Small carved stones, arranged in deliberate patterns designed for competitive play. But even before that, researchers found evidence of dice-like objects, knuckle bones worn smooth from repeated use, in settlements across the ancient Middle East going back 6 or 7,000 years. Think about what that means. Within the earliest organized human communities, before writing, before metal, before the wheel was widespread, people were already creating structured games to pass time with other people. Boredom didn't make ancient humans shut down. It made them invent. But there's another layer to this. Games weren't just entertainment, they were social infrastructure. When you sit across from another person and play a game with rules, you are practicing something far more important than fun. You are rehearsing fairness, reading your opponent's intentions, managing frustration when you lose, and feeling the specific pleasure of winning through skill. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, whose research at Oxford University mapped the social brain hypothesis, found that the human brain's outsized complexity compared to other primates is directly linked to the demands of navigating large social groups. Games, rituals, and shared play were not extras. They were the practice arena for the cognitive skills that kept complex societies running. So boredom pushed early humans into games. Games sharpened the social mind, and the social mind built civilizations. That's not a small chain of events. But here's where things get interesting. Not all ancient boredom was filled with games. Some of it was filled with something much quieter and much stranger. Storytelling. The urge to narrate, to turn the events of the day into a story with structure and meaning, appears to be one of the oldest human behaviors on record. Researchers studying the San people of southern Africa, whose oral traditions and lifestyle patterns are considered among the closest living parallels to ancient hunter-gatherer life, found something remarkable. Around the campfire at night, after the work of the day was done, stories dominated the conversation. Not practical information, not hunting tactics. Stories. Fictional and semi-fictional narratives about spirits, tricksters, strange animals, and impossible events. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner, who published findings from decades of fieldwork among the San, documented that daytime conversation was primarily about food, resources, and logistics. But nighttime conversation, the boredom-filling hours, was almost entirely devoted to narrative. Around 65% of night talk was stories. And this matters more than it first appears. Because stories, told in the dark with nothing else to do, did something quietly profound. They transferred knowledge across generations without writing. They built shared moral frameworks without courts or laws. They created emotional bonds between people who might otherwise have little in common. Every hour an ancient human spent killing boredom around a fire with a story was an hour that built the invisible architecture of a culture. But that's only part of the answer. Because boredom didn't just push people toward others, sometimes it pushed them inward. The evidence for ancient solitary boredom killing is everywhere once you know what to look for. Carved bones found in Europe dating back over 30,000 years show deliberate, repetitive patterns that serve no obvious practical purpose. Small figurines shaped from ivory and clay, too fragile and small to be weapons or tools, appear across prehistoric sites on multiple continents. Some of the earliest known musical instruments, bone flutes discovered in Germany, are at least 40,000 years old. People with nothing to do sat down and made things. Objects, sounds, marks on surfaces. The bored human hand, it turns out, is a remarkably creative instrument. But here's the twist. The things ancient humans made to kill boredom became the foundation of art, music, and symbolic thinking itself. The idol carving became sculpture. The rhythm tapped on a hollow log became percussion. The story told twice became mythology. Boredom didn't interrupt human progress, it funded it. And this is where everything changed in how researchers think about early cognitive development. For a long time, the standard model of human evolution focused almost entirely on survival pressures. Bigger brains because of better tools because of hunting because of food. It was a very practical story. But the presence of flutes, figurines, game boards, and campfire stories tells a different version. A version where the pressure of having nothing to do pushed the human brain into entirely new territories of imagination, where the hours that couldn't be filled with work were filled with something the brain had never tried before. The real question is whether that pressure ever actually went away. It didn't. And looking at the modern world through that lens changes everything. The app on your phone that you can't stop scrolling was designed by engineers who understood, consciously or not, exactly how that ancient boredom alarm works. The discomfort you feel when the internet goes out, the specific restlessness that appears when a meeting runs long or a flight is delayed, that is not a modern problem caused by technology. That is a 40,000-year-old neurological system encountering a world it was never designed for. Your brain doesn't know you have access to infinite content. It only knows it needs stimulation. And when stimulation doesn't come in the expected form, it screams. But knowing that changes what you can do with it, because the same system that made your ancestor carve a flute out of a vulture bone is sitting inside your skull right now. The same restlessness that built the first game boards, that generated the first campfire myths, that produced the first artwork scratched into cave walls, that is what you feel when you're bored and your phone is across the room. Ancient humans didn't have the option to scroll, so they built, played, sang, told stories, and imagined things that had never existed before. They turned the discomfort into output almost every time, and the output accumulated generation after generation into language and culture and art and eventually everything. The next time you feel that itching, clawing, restless need for something to grab onto, you are feeling exactly what they felt. That boredom is not the enemy of a meaningful life. It turns out it may be the original engine of one. You were sitting there, doing nothing, and it felt almost unbearable. It felt that way because it was supposed to. Your ancient mind was just waiting to see what you would make of it.